What if Prince Oberyn had killed the mountain? Let's delve into this possibility and explore its consequences. And remember, 2,000 likes is the magic number for a part 2. All around Oberyn, the crowd erupts in a mix of gasps and shouts. Some cheer, others hiss and boo, but he ignores them all. His focus is solely on the mountain, who writhes in agony yet still refuses to confess. Despite his screams and howls, he does not utter the words that Oberyn demands. Each passing second without a confession brings him closer to death. Desperation and rage burn within the Red Viper, but he refuses to let them consume him. A cornered animal is the most dangerous, and Oberyn knows he cannot afford a moment of recklessness. Steeling himself, he grips his spear and lunges forward, driving the tip deep into the mountain's exposed armpit. He feels the weapon sever nerves, rendering one of the brute's arms useless. Without hesitation, he does the same to the other, leaving the spear embedded in his opponent's massive frame. Only then does he mount the mountain and rain down furious blows. "Say it! Say it!" he roars, his fists striking with relentless fury. The mountain, overwhelmed by pain, finally chokes out the words, "I did it. I raped her. I murdered her. And I murdered her children." Oberyn's expression hardens. Good. With a swift motion, he draws a dagger and slits the mountain's throat. A faint gurgling sound escapes the dying giant, and then silence. The once roaring crowd falls eerily still. The truth is now known to all, and more importantly, the matter is settled. Tyrion Lannister is innocent. Oberyn strides over to Arianne's sand, pulling her into a deep embrace and a passionate kiss. The moment is only interrupted by Tyrion, his voice trembling with gratitude as he clings to the Viper's leg. "Thank you, Lord Oberyn. I do not know what I would have done without you." Oberyn smirks. Probably split his leg with an axe. They share a brief laugh before Oberyn leans closer to Tyrion and whispers, his voice low and foreboding. "My vengeance is far from complete. I have slain the cat's paw, but the lion still lives. For now, I will return to Dawn soon. You should consider joining me." Tyrion follows Oberyn's gaze toward the royal pavilion. Cersei is glaring daggers at them, but it is not her they are watching. It is Tywin, whose face remains unreadable. Yet Tyrion notices something unusual. His father's complexion is paler than usual, his eyes glassy. Then he recalls the sheen of an oily substance on the Red Viper's spear. He opens his mouth to ask, but Oberyn merely smirks. "You do not hunt much, do you? To kill a lion, you do not strike its paw, you strike at its stomach." Realizing the inevitable, Tyrion makes his decision. Though he has been declared innocent, he harbors no illusions about his position. Cersei will soon concoct another scheme to eliminate him, and this time, Tywin might decide his troublesome son is no longer worth the effort. Gathering important documents from the Master of Coin, Tyrion departs with the Dornish by morning. By week's end, Tywin Lannister is dead. The official cause is declared a stomach illness, but whispers of poison linger in the shadows. Cersei wastes no time blaming Tyrion, claiming he either poisoned their father or drove him to death through shame. She places a bounty on his head, but no one finds him. Tyrion, however, is not content to simply hide. He understands his vulnerability and begins securing allies. Though Oberyn has promised him protection, Tyrion is wary of being entirely dependent on House Martell. He seeks out other potential protectors. As they travel through the Kingswood, Tyrion hires a group of skilled foresters familiar with the land. While the others are confused by this decision, Oberyn trusts Tyrion's cunning. They set camp in a secluded area where the foresters warn of outlaws in the woods. Tyrion only smiles. "That's exactly who I hope to meet." That night, Tyrion and his men feast, drinking and making merry. Hours later, Podrick shakes his lord awake with urgency. "My lord, they're here." A booming voice cuts through the darkness. "When you reach the afterlife, tell your gods it was Shagga, son of Dolph, who sent you there." Tyrion grins. "Ah, Shagga, it has been too long. No threats to cut off my manhood and feed it to the goats?" "There wouldn't be much to feed with you, half-man," Shagga retorts, but there's laughter in his voice. "Well, I hope there won't be any manhood feeding tonight. Come, sit with us. Enjoy our goat and wine." Shagga, intrigued, strides forward, and a dozen of his clansmen follow. Tyrion gestures toward the gold within the tents. "My hosts have been generous, especially once they heard the great Shagga was here." Shagga eyes him suspiciously. "And what does the halfman want in return?" Tyrion smirks. "The same thing you offered before, Shagga. Your axes and your powerful arms." Shagga narrows his eyes. The half-man promised Shagga steel and gold. Now he has both. "What else do you have to give?" Tyrion leans forward. "Wine and beautiful women. We are heading to Dawn, where the finest wines and most beautiful women in the world reside. I would have thought the great Shagga would like to accompany me." By the time they reach Sunspear, Tyrion is greeted as a guest of honor. The Dornish know he will be a valuable ally against the Lannisters. Unlike in Westeros, there is no need to hide him. His presence serves as an open act of defiance. Furthermore, Tyrion presents the ledgers detailing the crown's debts. As the Martells study the figures, they realize the Iron Throne is on the brink of collapse. If Tywin had still lived, he might have stabilized the realm, but with him gone, the rot is evident. Doran Martell, ever the patient strategist, provides updates from King's Landing. Cersei Lannister has seized control, dismissed Kevin Lannister, and is already making disastrous decisions. Some among the Dornish, like Obara Sand, advocate for immediate war. She wishes to burn Old Town to the ground. Nymeria Sand suggests assassinating King Tommen, but Doran overrules them. He waits for the perfect moment to strike. Tyrion, too, is cautious. While he cares little for Cersei, he insists that Jaime and the children remain unharmed. His price for cooperation is the lordship of Casterly Rock. Though some Dornishmen scoff at his audacity, Oberyn vouches for him, and Doran ultimately accepts his terms. Rather than attacking outright, Doran seeks allies. He sends his son, Quentyn, to negotiate with Daenerys Targaryen, while Tyrion and Oberyn travel the free cities. Using Tyrion's knowledge of the crown's debts, they court influential moneylenders from Tyrosh, Pentos, and the Iron Bank of Braavos. Ironically, Cersei proves to be their greatest ally in this endeavor. She refuses to make debt payments, alienating those who once backed the Iron Throne. When Tyrion offers repayment in Lannister gold in exchange for their support, they eagerly agree. As the war looms, Tyrion watches Cersei's rule unravel. She rearms the faith, alienates her remaining allies, and weakens the kingdom further. Meanwhile, sellswords arrive in the Stormlands, capturing territory from the Lannisters. The time to strike is approaching, and when it does, Tyrion will be ready. At CIA headquarters in Langley, alarms began to sound. Not the dramatic kind that rang through hallways, but the quiet digital alerts that signaled serious trouble. Maya Richardson had missed her morning briefing. Her GPS tracker showed she remained stationary at Arlington Police Station. Her credentials had been run through a local system. All these details triggered automated security protocols. Director Thomas Harrison received the alert during his morning meeting. His face remained calm as he read the message, but his eyes hardened. Maya was one of his best analysts. Her current investigation into police corruption and foreign influence had already revealed disturbing patterns. Now she was being held by one of the departments she had been investigating. Internal Affairs Chief Sarah Martinez arrived at Arlington Police Station first. Her unexpected appearance sent ripples through the building. Officers who normally swaggered through hallways suddenly found urgent work at their desks. She noted their reactions, adding each observation to her growing file on departmental corruption. Maya watched the activity from her holding cell. She saw Martinez questioning desk officers, saw federal agents arriving in waves, saw Miller and his team trying to maintain their story as it crumbled around them. Their confident smiles had disappeared. Now they huddled in corners, whispering urgently, watching doors for the next investigator to arrive. The evidence lab reported problems with the drug samples. The residue on Maya's coffee cup did not match the planted drugs. The police dog handler's records showed inconsistencies. His training certificates had expired months ago. Small details snowballed into larger problems. The frame job fell apart under professional scrutiny. Director Harrison made phone calls. Judges received information about police corruption investigations. The district attorney learned about federal interest in certain officers. Maya's research into foreign influence operations suddenly landed on important desks throughout Washington. The true scope of her investigation began to emerge. Martinez discovered more as she dug deeper. Previous arrests by Miller's team showed similar patterns, evidence that disappeared, witnesses who could not be found, cases dismissed quietly with no record of why. A system of corruption protected by badges and false reports. Maya's detention had finally exposed it all. The station phones began ringing constantly. Reporters asked questions about unusual federal activity. Senior officers demanded explanations. Miller's team found themselves facing interviews with multiple agencies. Their simple frame job had triggered an avalanche of investigations they could not stop. Maya remained quiet through it all. She watched Martinez gather evidence, watched federal agents collect security footage, watched years of police corruption exposed because these men chose the wrong target on the wrong morning. Her trained mind recorded every detail, building a case that would reshape the entire department. The CIA's legal team arrived next. They carried Maya's complete service record, her years of commendations, her ongoing investigations. Miller saw the file on his captain's desk, finally understood who he had tried to frame. His face turned pale as he realized how thoroughly he had destroyed his own career. By late afternoon, the investigation had spread beyond Arlington. Other departments faced scrutiny. Other officers saw their cases reviewed. Maya's research had suggested corruption reached through multiple jurisdictions. Now, evidence proved it. A single attempted frame job had cracked open a system of police corruption that had existed for years. The holding cell door opened. Maya stood, smoothed her suit jacket and walked out with the same quiet confidence she had maintained all day. She had gathered more evidence during her detention than months of official investigation. These men had not just framed an innocent woman. They had handed her the key to exposing their entire operation. The emergency court hearing began at 4:30 that afternoon. Judge William Anderson presided over a courtroom filled with tension. Officer Miller and his team sat together, their confidence replaced by growing fear. Police officials filled one side of the room. The other side remained strangely empty until the last moment. The door opened. Maya entered first, now wearing a fresh suit brought by her colleagues. Behind her came a group that made Miller sink lower in his seat. CIA Director Harrison, 3 federal prosecutors, Internal Affairs Chief Martinez. Their faces showed no emotion as they took their places. Judge Anderson read the charges first. Possession with intent to distribute. The standard charge Miller's team used for their frame jobs. The judge's voice carried no warmth as he reviewed the arrest report. Years of experience told him something bigger waited to unfold in his courtroom. The district attorney stood to present the case. His hands shook slightly as he gripped his papers. One look at the assembled federal agents had convinced him to reveal everything. He spoke about receiving multiple cases from Miller's team, all following the same pattern, all targeting minorities, all based on evidence that never seemed to reach trial. Maya rose next. The room fell silent as she walked to the front. No fear showed in her movements, no anger in her voice. She introduced herself formally. Dr. Maya Richardson, Central Intelligence Agency, Senior Analyst for Counter-Intelligence Operations. Miller felt the blood drain from his face as her true identity emerged. The evidence came fast after that. Martinez presented internal affairs files, years of complaints against Miller's team, all dismissed, all buried. Phone records showed calls to judges before arrests. Bank accounts revealed unexplained deposits. The pattern of corruption emerged clearly in the afternoon light. Director Harrison spoke about Maya's real work, her investigation into foreign influence in law enforcement, the money trails she discovered leading from police departments to overseas accounts. Miller and his team had not just framed an innocent woman, they had interfered with a federal investigation into international corruption. Maya's own evidence came next. Every detail she observed during her detention, every procedure violated, every mistake made by overconfident officers. Her precise memory and analytical mind had recorded it all. The judge listened with growing anger as she exposed the morning's events with professional clarity. The surveillance footage played on courtroom screens. CIA cameras showed the truth Miller tried to hide. The dog responding to handlers' signals, the planted evidence, the false radio calls. Their practiced moves revealed as theater, their confident performance exposed as corruption. Miller watched his career collapse. Years of similar operations flashed through his mind. How many other innocent people had they framed? How many lives had they destroyed? Now his own freedom vanished because he chose the wrong target, because he thought a black woman alone would make an easy victim. The federal prosecutors presented their findings. Miller's team had unknowingly helped foreign agents. Their false arrests had disrupted CIA surveillance operations. Their greed had made them tools for outside interests. They had not just broken laws, they had threatened national security. Judge Anderson's face grew darker with each revelation. This was not a simple drug case, not a routine hearing. He was witnessing the exposure of corruption that reached through multiple levels of law enforcement. His courtroom had become the stage for something historic. Maya stood again, her quiet voice carried through the shocked silence. She spoke about patterns, about evidence gathered over months, about how this morning's attempted frame-up connected to larger investigations, about foreign money buying police cooperation, about systematic corruption protected by badges and false reports. The other officers in the room listened with growing horror. Many had suspected Miller's team operated outside the law. None had guessed the true scope of their crimes. None had imagined their department had become a tool for foreign interests. The shame of it hung heavy in the afternoon air. Miller finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. He had thought they were untouchable, thought their badges gave them power to destroy any life they chose. Now he sat in a federal courtroom, watching his corruption exposed by the very woman he tried to frame. The irony felt like handcuffs around his soul. Judge Anderson spoke last. His words carried the weight of law and the heat of anger. The charges against Maya were dismissed. New charges against Miller's team were filed. Federal charges that would end careers and begin long prison sentences. Justice arrived in his courtroom wearing a CIA badge instead of police blue. The sun hung low outside the courthouse windows as Maya gathered her files. Around her, federal agents took Miller and his team into custody. Their badges and guns surrendered, their power stripped away, their years of corruption exposed. because they thought they could frame a black woman without consequences. They never guessed she would be the one to bring them down. The investigation into Arlington Police Department lasted 6 months. Every case Miller's team handled underwent review. Hundreds of wrongful arrests came to light. Lives they had destroyed with false evidence emerged from the shadows. The system that protected corrupt officers crumbled as sunlight reached its darkest corners. Miller and his team faced federal court 1 month after their failed attempt to frame Meyer. The evidence overwhelmed any defense they tried to mount. Their badges could not protect them anymore. Turner broke first, confessing to years of false arrests. The others followed, hoping cooperation might reduce their sentences. None of them would wear a police uniform again. Meyer returned to her desk at Langley the next morning as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. Her investigation into foreign influence in law enforcement expanded. More departments came under scrutiny. The pattern she discovered spread beyond Arlington, reaching into police forces across 3 states. Each revelation brought more corrupt officers to justice. The media coverage lasted weeks. Headlines spoke about systematic corruption, about police officers working for foreign interests, about an innocent black woman whose strength exposed it all. Meyer's story became a symbol of everything wrong with law enforcement, and everything possible when justice finally worked as intended. Internal Affairs Chief Martinez led a complete overhaul of police procedures. New oversight systems appeared. Independent reviews became mandatory for all arrests. The old guard who protected corrupt officers retired quickly. Young officers who believed in real justice took their places. Change came slowly but thoroughly. To a department that needed it desperately. The district attorney's office faced its own reckoning. Prosecutors who helped cover Miller's crimes lost their jobs. Others faced criminal charges. The system that allowed police corruption to flourish underwent painful but necessary reform. New policies emerged. New leaders stepped forward. The old ways of protecting corrupt officers died in the light of public scrutiny. Meyer's work led to more arrests. Police chiefs who took foreign money. Judges who helped cover crimes. Officials who looked away from corruption. The evidence she gathered reached through every level of law enforcement. Each arrest made the system cleaner. Each conviction restored a little more public trust. The wrongfully convicted found justice at last. Miller's fake drug cases collapsed under review. People imprisoned by false evidence walked free. Families torn apart by corrupt police reunited. Meyer made sure each case received proper attention. Each victim got their life back. The healing process began, slowly but surely. Other departments learned hard lessons from Arlington's example. Police chiefs reviewed their oversight systems. Internal affairs divisions gained real power. Officers who might have followed Miller's path saw the consequences of corruption. The ripples of change spread through law enforcement across the country. Foreign intelligence operations lost their grip on American police departments. Meyer's investigation exposed their methods, their contacts, their money trails. Other agencies joined the effort to clean up law enforcement. The corrupt system that let foreign interests buy police cooperation collapsed completely. The CIA recognized Meyer's work quietly, as they did everything. A small ceremony, a classified commendation, but her greatest reward came from knowing she had helped restore justice to a broken system. Her morning coffee run still took her past Arlington Police Station. Now she saw honest officers doing honest work, real justice replacing corrupt power. Miller watched the changes from his prison cell. His 20-year sentence gave him plenty of time to consider his mistakes. He had thought Meyer would be an easy target because she was a black woman alone. Instead, she had been the one person strong enough, smart enough, and positioned perfectly to expose everything. His attempt to frame her had brought down the corrupt system he helped build. New officers graduating from the academy learned about Maya's case, not her name or her CIA role, but the lesson of what happened when police betrayed their duty, when they chose corruption over justice, when they thought their badges gave them power to destroy innocent lives. Each new generation of officers promised to do better. Martinez kept in touch with Maya. The two women met monthly for coffee, discussing changes in the department, progress toward real reform, the slow but steady rebuilding of public trust. Their friendship represented the new cooperation between agencies, the new commitment to real justice over protected corruption. Maya's analysis of foreign influence became a model for other investigations. Her methods exposed corruption in departments across the country. Her work protected national security by cleaning up law enforcement. The changes she started reshaped police work in ways that would last for generations. The coffee shop where it all began remained Maya's regular morning stop. Sometimes new officers nodded respectfully when they saw her, not knowing exactly who she was, but sensing she played a role in fixing their department, making it something they could be proud to serve. She would nod back, knowing real justice had finally replaced corrupt power. One morning coffee stop had started changes that would protect innocent lives for years to come. If this story of justice, corruption, and one woman's courage to stand against a broken system moved you, there are more powerful stories waiting to be told. Subscribe to our channel to witness more tales of truth prevailing against all odds. Join our growing community of viewers who believe in the power of storytelling to expose corruption and celebrate those who fight for justice. Hit that subscribe button and bell icon now to never miss our weekly uploads of gripping narratives that reveal the untold stories of courage, resilience, and triumph.